Okay, welcome to another edition of the Popcast podcast. I'm John Croce from ActionFigureKing.com, and this is my co-host.
This is Esteban from Esteban TV.
Today we're going to be talking about what brought us into the toy and comic industries, and the differences between those industries then and today.
And obviously, the differences of growing up and how society is, I guess, finally accepting,
right.
And it's cool now to be, I guess, a geek or nerd. I even know what's like the correct word to use.
Right. So yeah, I mean, there's been big changes, and even in that terminology, right? I mean, it used to be nerd way back in the day, and now it's geek, and it's cool to be a gerd. I was going to say, is that kind of like a combination of a geek and a nerd?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I know there is a huge difference now. Like, a lot of people are saying, no, I'm a nerd or a geek.
Yeah.
And I think geek has to do more like, I guess, comics and pop culture stuff.
Right.
And nerd, I guess, it has to be more like technical, computers, and I guess
I think
physics and science, I guess.
I think specifically that is it, but I think the terms are used a little bit interchangeably.
Yeah.
But, that's society bastardizes everything.
Yeah, well, how society is. We always need a label for something.
Right. So for me, I'm considerably older than you. I grew up in the 70s and reading comic books. It was a different world then, and that's the contrast of now and then. Now you got the internet, and you've got so much digital media, and the movie.
You just see it everywhere now.
It's everywhere. I mean, you can't avoid it. It's video games and movies are coming out constantly, so you're exposed to all this pop culture, and specifically, this explosion of comic book stuff. Whether it's cartoons or movies, it's everywhere. And I think, like you said, with these terms of geek and nerd, where when I was growing up, and even with you, I'm going to assume you were more isolated when you read comic books. People knew that you were reading comic books. They understood what that was, but they didn't necessarily know the specifics of it. Especially when you moved outside of characters like Superman and Batman, who, they've been iconic for the last 40, 50, 60 years.
Everyone knows who they are.
Right. But, growing up, I grew up when the X-Men were coming of age. Even though they had been around since the 60s, they really exploded with the new X-Men. And one of the things I loved about reading that book was that not a lot of people were reading it. I mean, at the time that I started reading it, it had just come off of being a bi-monthly. Imagine that, only 6 issues of X-Men a year.
Oh, wow.
So people didn't really know who these characters were. They certainly didn't know who Wolverine was. And nowadays, even people who don't, who aren't into these things, they know who Wolverine is.
They know who's Deadpool now.
Yeah, they know who the X-Men are because there's so much of this out there. You can't avoid it. They know who Captain America is, and that's, as iconic as he is, and the Avengers were popular in the 70s, people didn't really know. I can bet, and you may not know this reference, but if you had said the Avengers back in 1975, 1978, most people who would have even gotten any kind of reference would have thought of an old TV show from the 60s, which has nothing to do with the comic book. So for me, it was reading comics, and I never kind of broke my love of toys. I mean, I like all kids, I grew up with toys, and the Mego figures were around at that time, which kind of tied the two together for me. It tied the comic book world into this ability to play with something that allowed me to live out those stories.
Well, my question is, because you definitely grew up in the 70s, how was, I guess, society's take on it? Like, when you went to school or cultural setting, like, was it like frowned upon? Like, people were like, oh, you read comics, or...
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a stigma to, I don't even think the term action figure was around at the time. They were still just dolls.
Yeah.
And I know there was a guy, now I had kind of, growing up, I had split lives. I spent most of the year in Brooklyn, and then I spent the summer in Greenwood Lake. And a guy that I knew from Brooklyn had moved to New Jersey, and I hadn't seen him in a while. And I would estimate we were somewhere between 11 and 13. And I mean, the Mego figures were my world. I mean, that's what me and a couple of my friends would play with all the time. And I saw this guy after a while, and he had a bunch of sisters, and I said something to them. I said, "Oh, you know, I wanted to see if he wants to play with the Migos, or what, I don't know if we specifically called them Migos at the time, but whatever we called them." And his sister turned to me and she said, "Oh, I don't think he plays with those anymore. Those are, those are like kids' toys." Which I totally get it. I mean, there's an age where a lot of kids just consciously kind of abandon, the stuff that they consider childish. But oddly enough, once me and him got together then, and he still had them, we took them out and we started playing with them, and it was very cool. But I think now, and I'm sure you experienced this. I mean, when I was in my teens and early 20s and mid 20s. I was going to stores and I was buying figures, and it never stopped. Now, it may have been considered a little bit weirder then than it is now. I mean, nowadays it's common to go to a convention or a store.
Oh, not even that. I think the Walmart and Target employees starting to realize that grown men collect action figures now, with all the exclusives coming out for each store.
Right, and you know what really cracked me up? I was working on the site this week and putting some of the new Funko products on there. They got those reaction figures, and if you look at the packaging, it says this is an adult collectible, not a toy.
Oh my God, I didn't even see that.
And I scoffed at that. I mean, what BS? It's not a toy. Now, I understand there could be a couple of strategies there. That could be because they want to perceive, that there's a value to it. They want to attract that older market. But I just found it offensive. It's not a toy. It's a $10 product. It's the perfect thing for kids to be playing with. In a world where kids are just getting overwhelmed with internet and video games and stuff, I fear that something's being lost with this whole industry in that, you asked a minute ago, did people frown upon it? Yeah, they definitely frowned upon it when I remember being in high school and telling a teacher that we were reading comics, and I brought in a graphic novel from my English teacher to look at, and his response was, well, I didn't realize they had such high quality stuff out there.
Yeah.
Now, my fear is kind of relative to that. I fear that these kids today are just knowing these characters from video games and movies, and they're not even sitting down and reading comic books.
Oh, no, I definitely agree with that statement. All these kids know them from the movies, from the video games, and none of them really ever obviously read the graphic novels or comics that go with the characters.
Which to me it's twofold. I mean, there's the true origins of this material, which we've talked plenty of times about kind of bastardizing this stuff and changing it for the sake of Hollywood and everything, which I can't stand. So there's understanding the true beginnings of the character and what it really is about. But also there's a big educational part to it. I can't tell you how many words I learned from reading comic books, even if I didn't know how to pronounce them correctly, because I'm just sitting there reading. But I knew the meaning of the word from seeing it repeatedly in these books and the colorful language and stuff. I think kids are losing that, and they're losing that whole. There's a creative aspect to that. There's understanding visual, graphic design and how to put words with imagery and tell a story and stuff.
But the thing though is, you can't really blame the kids. Because more of the parents. It's not like a 10-year-old or 12-year-old going to walk down to the comic book store,
Well, no, right. That's part of the problem, right? When we were growing up, there were tons of comic stores. I mean, I saw it go through such a cycle where there weren't a lot of comic stores at first, and then through the 80s, they just exploded. I mean, you couldn't go 2 miles without finding a comic store. And that's not the case today because the industry collapsed, right? It's hard to find a comic store now.
Especially when I was growing up, in high school and middle school, there weren't any comic book stores around me at all.
So you got your comic books primarily how?
Okay, so I guess I'll do a quick history. I guess how I've gotten into the geek culture. Mm-hmm. When I was younger, my dad loved Star Trek.
Okay.
So and watched the A-Team and a lot of those 80s shows. Even though I was born in '89, he still rewatched them even though in the '90s those 80s shows.
Yep.
So I'll sit there and watch it with them, and that's how I started getting fascinated with pop culture.
Right.
And that's why I still have a big, I guess I love the 80s. I love all like the 80s culture stuff, I guess, because it has to do with my dad a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So then as I got exposed to like, the culture of like the 80s and growing up, I was like part of both crowds. Like I would love playing video games.
Right.
But at the same time, I played a lot of sports. And my athletic friends, of course, they didn't play any video games. They're all outside playing sports or doing whatever, riding their bikes.
Right.
That was fun for me too. But at the same time, I needed an outlet to play video games with people.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started becoming friends with the gamers. So I had like the taste of both worlds. Like I still had friends who will say play baseball or football, and at night I would go over to my friend's house, other friends, to play Xbox or Dreamcast and stuff like that, or Sega or N64.
Right.
At night. So then obviously I was getting exposed to this culture of video games now. And then obviously video games. I feel like video games and comic books go hand in hand.
I mean, especially nowadays.
Yeah, the graphics, the visual, the storytelling.
Right.
I feel it's all the same media. It just depends how you, I guess, take it in.
Right, but I think what's happened is there's so much competition now for every generation's eyeballs that there's only so many hours in a day. Right?
Oh, yeah, I know.
and there's only so many dollars in our pockets, so you can't expect kids who really, kids, preteen kids, to have money to be able to go out and buy video games and comic books, which are insanely expensive.
Oh, yes, I know.
And toys and buy movie tickets, right? They can't do all of that stuff.
Oh, yeah, I know. So then, a part I left out, though, with the action figures aspect, I love toys. I probably had the same love as you when I was younger.
Yeah.
But the problem was my mom never understood it, and to this day, she still doesn't understand it.
See, there you go. There's that geek nerd aspect of it, right?
So, like, when I was, like, growing up, I kept a lot of my action figures into my teenage years, but I would just keep them in the box, whatever, because I wanted to keep them.
Right.
But my mom, again, like, frowned upon it, like, oh, why do you keep them? Those are for kids. Just throw them in the trash or whatever. So I was able to keep some of them, but little by little, my mom got rid of them. I guess she wanted me to let go of my figures.
Yeah, she wanted to move you along, but moms are responsible for destroying more toys and creating a collector's market because there's less of those toys.
Yeah, I know.
How many of them ended up in landfills somewhere?
So it's funny because thank God I was able to save a handful of stuff I had.
Yep.
And it's funny because then I started rebuying toys I knew I had as a kid, and I'll show my mom, and my mom will get pissed off. Like, I know in her heart she's like, "I got rid of that 10 years ago. Why is it here?"
That's the classic story, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, but it's kind of sad though because a lot of things I had as a kid I can't find anymore. Like
you mean you search on eBay and stuff?
Yeah.
And just can't find those products.
I can't just find them. Like I know like I had like all the Crash Bandicoot toys, and then I started Googling them this year. Cause I'm like, I found like a small prop. It went with one of them.
Yeah.
And I started remembering I used to have this, and I started Googling it, and yeah, they're rare. They're so rare for some reason.
Well, I mean, yeah,
they're going for like $100 mint condition.
This is what I was joking about. I mean, parents throwing this stuff out, and then does anybody still own the property? Is anybody pushing the property? If there's not a market for it and most of the stuff was destroyed, now the people that are around that want it, they can't find it because it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I know.
Unlike properties like Marvel Comics and DC Comics, which have always been popular, probably always.
Yeah, they're always going to push out a new Spider-Man figure this year, next year. So you're always going to get your Spider-Man figure.
Right.
But to get a Crash Bandicoot action figure, that's like impossible now.
And even if somebody were to turn around and buy that property, there's only, again, it's the same thing. There's only so many hours in the day. So they're competing almost with themselves at that point. Something I wanted to say, when you were talking about video games, again, this generational difference really changes. I grew up when the video games were coming of age. I grew up with the original
Pac-Man,
Atari and ColecoVision. And yeah, I mean, even going back before that, being in Brooklyn and going to the bowling alleys and dropping your quarters, and that was the only way at first to play these games.
Yeah, I miss the arcade industry.
that too is an experience. I mean, there's still arcades around, but I think
they're hard to find.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
You have to travel like miles just to go to it, and then that arcade's not even like decent. It's like run down.
Right, and that's why, because it's the technology we've gotten to a point now where the technology's in our hand.
Yeah, there's no point going to an arcade dropping $5.
You can have an iPod or a phone.
And you have the game for like $1.
You could have the game. You could have the movie. You could have the TV show. You could have the digital comic book. It's all there. This is what's affected all of these industries, because that one piece of technology has kind of taken a big piece of their action away.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, the same thing. Only so many dollars, only so many hours. Some people don't even care beyond the digital world. They don't care about the toys and stuff. And it's interesting because and I'm sure you meet the same type of people. There's people like us who want it all. They want the movies, they want the comics, they want the toys. And then there's people who kind of know where to draw the line, whether it's because of their wallets or just they don't care. Some people like the movies, but they don't collect the toys. Some people are...
With me, I like to say I'm kind of a little bit of both. Mm-hmm. Like, I love collecting. A balance. Yeah, I love collecting, but at the same time, I'm not gonna drop like $200-$300 for an action figure, you know?
Right.
Like, the most I'll spend on an action figure, $40-$50. Mm-hmm. And those are like the nice ones, like the nice, like articulate, really expensive ones. Yeah. They come with like a lot of interchangeable hands and faces. It's worth like the $40-$50.
What would you say of the people you know who are geeks, nerds nowadays? Right, it's cool to do it. It wasn't when we were younger. And of the people you know, what is it that drives them? Are they playing games? Are they into the movies? Are they collecting the comics? Are they buying the toys? Are they doing all of it? Are they doing some of it?
I think when you're a geek, I think you try to do all of it. Mm-hmm. I think it's just in us. You know, we go see the movie, we get excited. Then we see the action figure in the store next day from the movie.
Right.
And we buy it. And obviously, you know, if you like the character that much, we're up to date on the graphic novels or the comics about them. So I feel like as us, we just try to do it all.
Because, you know, I was talking to somebody who's worked in the industry. I was giving him a quote. I'm making a website for him, and he didn't seem to understand that. You know, I have the Action Figure King site, which specializes in toys and collectibles, and he didn't seem to understand that people who buy original comic book artwork would cross over into this toy market.
Yeah.
He felt they were completely exclusive, that if you buy comic book artwork, then you don't really collect toys, or vice versa. And I think there's a big crossover there.
Oh, of course. It's the same thing. It's just a different format. You know, if you like Spider-Man, most likely you're going to own a Spider-Man statue, like a couple like action figures here and there.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're going to definitely be reading up on Spider-Man because he's your favorite character.
I think if we all had endless funds and money wasn't an issue, we would just buy everything. If we love Spider-Man, we'd buy everything Spider-Man.
Exactly.
And guys who go beyond that, if you love Marvel Comics, we'd buy everything Marvel Comics. But, you know, there's budget limitations, there's space limitations. I think that's the real constraints for people. I think once you're in that collector's mentality, and that's kind of the problem with this industry, is when you like comic books, when you like toys, it's hard to kind of draw the line and say, well, this is what I like. It's just, that's what the collector does. You know, get them all. They want you to buy them all, man.
Oh, my God. It's really tough, especially with the Marvel Legends series. Mm-hmm. They're really smart with that build-a-figure parts.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not going to lie, because I have like half the figure built, and then I'm like, what's two more, like, $40.
Right, exactly.
To finish the guy, even though I buy some action figures that I don't really care for.
I mean, I would be really interested to run a formal survey on this to know, you know, so we're talking about what got us involved in this, but to look at age groups and see what got people involved, because there's so many different ways into this market.
And on my honest opinion, I really feel, I guess, like the older generation, I guess I'll put myself in there too, mm-hmm. is our parents, I feel.
Well, you've mentioned
sons.
this.
We're just sons of geeks, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned this before. For me, that definitely wasn't it. And not so much reflection of my parents, maybe just at the time, because prior to that, there wasn't much of a market. But yeah, I mean, parents can definitely have a strong influence on what their kids grow up liking. You know, if the parent likes sports, the kid likes sports. If the parent likes comics, the kid likes comics. And the industry relies on that in a big way. I will say I did finally see Captain America last night, and I wasn't as thrilled as everybody kind of made me.
Oh my God, you're breaking my heart right now.
Well, here's why. I mean, and to keep it in this conversation is because I feel like there's nothing there for kids. I feel like it's too mature of a movie. What I want to see as a diehard from the 70s, I want to see a fun, and not necessarily Captain America, but I want to see just in the superhero genre, I want to see just a fun movie, an adventure movie. The main thing for me with Captain America was versus, say, and I know a lot of people hated the last Wolverine movie.
The one of the Wolverine, that one, right?
Yeah, where he's in Japan.
Yeah.
The thing I would argue with these two movies is the Wolverine movie the story flowed naturally. So it was kind of like this adventure, classical movie writing where you start it, the viewer is pulled in and taken on this trip, and it all kind of makes sense. I think that Captain America had some really good moments, and it was well done. But I think it was kind of like I didn't know what I was watching. Like I could tell you, my kids didn't enjoy it at all.
Yeah.
The story was complex, and it tried to be kind of real world and stuff.
Oh, it has to do with secret agent and espionage and.
Right, but then you got these quasi superheroes running around, which for people who really want to see a realistic movie, then that might throw them. So I feel like it's trying to be all things to everybody instead of just being what it should be, which is, I'm telling you that at some point, somebody's going to do this in the way I'm talking about. They're going to make a full-blown comic book movie where it's just, it's really fun, it's really colorful, it's not so dark, it's not so gritty, and that's going to become the trend. You're going to see everybody's going to want to do that after that.
Well, I can easily say I don't know if you saw Guardians of the Galaxy.
I did.
Well, you have to admit that was a really fun adventure movie.
Well, it was, and in contrast, my kids loved that movie, okay, because it had these kind of goofy, fun characters. Yeah, it was a little off color at moments, but it also had, this is more comparable to the Wolverine story writing, where it starts and everything was moving you forward through this storyline. I felt like Captain America was just a little disjointed. And I don't mean to deviate from the topic too much, but so they're using all these mediums, right? They're using movies and video games. They know they're going to get you at some point. If you have even the remotest like of Captain America or Superman or Batman or whoever it is, they're going to get you because there's going to be a movie. There's going to be a cartoon.
Or you're just shopping at Target or Walmart and you're going to see a Captain American shirt for $10.
Right.
You're just going to buy it. You're like, it's $10.
Right.
I enjoyed the movie. Even though you're not might be a big comic fan, you just wear it just because it's the trending thing now.
Well, and I've seen a trend with there's a lot of retro product out there. I think I was in Target last week and saw some really cool retro shirts, both Marvel and DC, and they were just T-shirts, but the classic artwork.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of shirts.
I had to consciously say no, I'm not buying them.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got enough clothes, and I just don't need to spend the money. I mean, but they were awesome, and they give everybody what they want now.
Yeah,
you've got the cool, gritty modern stuff, but they also have the retro stuff, and they know how to get you into the market.
Yeah, they have to get everyone into it,
So, for me, the comic books pulled me in, and I really have, again, a strong fear that kids are being pulled into this industry without ever picking up a comic book, without ever reading a comic book. So they're losing the value of reading, but they're also losing the true creation of these products where they were written, as two-dimensional. You sit down with a book, you read it from cover to cover, and that's another thing about comic books that's really gotten screwed up is you used to have these self-contained stories, and maybe they went for 2 or 3 issues once in a while, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
But now there's so much crossover, you know. And
yeah, so many things going on. Like, yeah, I know it really gets to annoying to a point. I know when I was reading Avengers vs. X-Men, a big event from like 2 years ago.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I was reading a storyline, but then I saw other issues of other comic book series that include the storyline and what's going on in there. And if you want to know what's happening in what's Wolverine doing during that event, you have to buy his issues. Or like it really got complicated.
Yeah, and this for me is where they lose you because they're asking too much of you. You know, this was for me, as much as I love it, it's supposed to be enjoyable. And when you're telling me now I got to go to this book and that book,
it's all the tie-ins. There you go. That's the proper. That was the word I was looking for. The tie-in issues.
Yeah, and I really think that this is the problem with why there aren't as many true, you know, people buying comic books, comic book fans. They may be getting them at the movies and the toys, but if they really want people to read more comic books, I think they need to bring it back to that the good old days of stop trying to do all the cross marketing and let it happen naturally. It's kind of too forced.
Yeah, of course.
I would hate to be a writer today because how complex must it be to have to, you know, negotiate now with 3 other creative teams or 4 other creative teams to get a story arc done? I mean, it's got to be frustrating.
Yeah, I know. Especially, I guess that's what you imagine, like, especially the tie-in issues. You have to, like, probably talk to that creative team making Avengers vs. X-Men. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, so make sure you guys don't contradict each other or something, you know?
Exactly. And what I find confusing, like at the end of Captain America, they're showing Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver.
Yeah.
And Quicksilver's just appeared in the X-Men movie, which of course has no ties to the Avengers series.
Yeah, well, I think in Avengers they're not calling. I forget what they're calling them.
Oh, they're not calling them Quicksilver?
Oh no, they're calling them Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, but they can't call them mutants.
Oh, okay.
Because the word mutant is owned by Fox.
Okay.
I forgot what the guy said. He called them special children or something like that.
Yeah, there was some phrase like I didn't even get who they were at first because Quicksilver looks so bulky to me.
Yeah, I know. that threw me off too when I saw Quicksilver. I knew that was Scarlet Witch because I saw her doing a lot of magic, fancy stuff.
Right.
But Quicksilver was that Quicksilver? I could have sworn for a moment he transformed into like the Hulk or something or some big.
Right, yeah. He was like vibrating or something. I mean, whenever you have Speedster, Flash, Quicksilver, or any of these guys, I always, you envision somebody who's very lean and thin.
Well, I still feel the X-Men Quicksilver was really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. He was an interesting character, and we'll see if they even bring him back now for the subsequent film because they got so many characters in that franchise.
Well, it would be hard to. I think he was like in the 70s.
Right.
So he would probably be a lot older if they did a present day movie X-Men.
I think they're going to try to find some way with this whole apocalypse storyline to rip some of these characters from that time period into the current time period and kind of merge the teams.
Oh, yeah. I can see that happening, actually, yeah.
Yeah, because I think they want to now try to get as much out of this franchise as they can. So they want to, they're going to try to cherry pick all the best elements.
Yeah, because I know they messed up with the first 3 films.
Yeah.
And this is a way, I probably said this before, this is a way of cleaning up their mess with this latest one.
Right.
Well, anyway, I guess I gotta go back on topic. I guess growing up, for me, when I got into video games with those kids or whatever, and I still had a love for action figures, but like I said, my mom, I guess, frowned upon it and didn't want me doing it, whatever. So then I got into college, whatever, and obviously college, you start meeting other people.
Right.
In between classes, and I saw these kids at my community college playing Pokemon, Nintendo DS.
You got your confirmation that this was okay.
Yeah. No, but in college, I was in college, I was like, I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to be happy,
Right.
Like I just want to be happy and enjoy the things I want to enjoy. Because, you grow up a little bit, you can become more mature, and you understand what's really more important in life.
Well, I think, too, that you keep coming back to video games. I think that video games were maturing, too. They were growing with the users.
Yeah.
Where when I started with the Atari, I was only like 10 years old, so the games were great. And as I grew, then those other systems came out, the Sega Genesis and the Nintendo NES, and the games became more sophisticated and more complex, so it kind of kept you involved. You weren't playing combat, anymore. You weren't playing paddle. You were playing now more complex games, and they were able to tie them into these characters. What games were you playing that tied into the industry? Because for me, going back to the Atari, the only one that I remember that we really had was there was a Superman game on the original Atari system, and it was a pretty cool game. Not by today's standards at all.
Yeah.
But it was a pretty cool game. But there wasn't a whole lot, because there was a lot less product at that time. So when you got into, I know that the NES had, there was an X-Men game that I hated. That game seemed to have a lot of.
Oh, I think there was a bunch, but.
Right, that's what I'm getting at, is that then there was an explosion of every year or so.
Like in the 90s,
games.
yeah, there was a Batman games, X-Men games. Mm-hmm. I remember that time period.
Wolverine game.
Yeah.
And the games, this was what happens when you start pumping stuff out. You're really just pumping out crap. There weren't any real memorable ones for me. And I think now with the technology, with the PlayStation and the Xbox and stuff, some of these games are just unreal. What were some of the games? Are there games that you can think of that tied into the genre of comic books that you were playing?
I want to say not really, because I was playing the majority of games like Halo, Mario 64, Donkey Kong 64, Mario Kart. Right. All those games that you got to bond with other people.
Right.
And you used to go over to someone's house, Super Smash Brothers or GameCube and N64. Right. But that's the thing I think I was going towards was. So I started hanging out with these people in college and stuff, and I like comic books, but I really wasn't like a heavy reader at that time. Mm-hmm. And just hanging out with those people, I was able to and they showed me hey, I'm reading this graphic novel. You should take a look at it and stuff.
Right. Okay. And
so I started reading. People lend me stuff, whatever, and just started realizing oh my God, I've been missing out this whole entire part of my life.
Right. I think there's definitely and it's going to vary for people, but there's a time where friends influence you very strongly.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Every parent has this fear that kids are going to be influenced by kids, that are going to get them in trouble and stuff.
Yeah. Well, my mom's fear was influence me with comic books and video games. So.
Right. But I think, too, that most people then at some point, they grow out of that and they start consciously saying, hey, I don't care what you like. This is what I like. You start to kind of become your own person and decide the things you like.
Yes, maturity level, the confidence you grow.
Yeah.
Because, obviously you're still trying to figure out who you are as a teenager. Right. And then everyone's telling you, even your parents, no, you should be this, you should be that, yada, yada, yada. But then you start realizing, I don't want to be that. I want to be who I am.
Right. You want to be what makes you, like you said a few minutes ago, what makes you happy. And I should point out that I remember when I was, so I moved out when I was about 22, and first I shared an apartment with a friend, then I had my own basement apartment, then I had my own split-level apartment, then I moved into a house. And through all of those moves, my toy collection, the part of it that sticks out to me was I remember being in my basement apartment, and I would play in bands, and my friends would come over, and they'd be so impressed with how I had these kind of two different sides of my personality. I had this very intellectual part where I loved to read, science books and stuff, and I played in the band. And then I had this toy collection, which was kind of like my stepchild that nobody really knew about.
Yeah, I had the same thing too.
And it wasn't, it wasn't that I was embarrassed by it. I would talk to whoever about it. It was just something that, going back to what we were saying about nerds and geeks and stuff, most people didn't want to hear about it, so it's not something I'm just going to start talking about because, they have no interest in it. It's like if you start talking to me about sports, I don't really have an interest in it. I'll try to have a conversation, but I can't talk stats or specific players and stuff. But then as I moved on, when I moved into my next apartment, I had a walk-in closet, and that closet was filled from top to bottom with toys. And when I moved out of that apartment, that closet was exploding with toys because I couldn't even contain them in there anymore. And now, as I look around, they just dominate my life. So, what got me into this, as much as I say comic books, it's become about toys for me. And I don't know what it is. It's an obsession. It's just this collector's mentality about. I always wanted one set, whether it was 6 scale or 4-inch figures, whatever it was. I wanted one set of the entire Marvel and DC universe.
Yeah, I think a lot of people actually do want that. So I don't think you're not the only one.
I don't know that we'll ever get it, but
yeah, no, I think it's impossible. There's way too many characters.
Well, they always seem to cancel a series when,
I mean, like Marvel Universe, the little 3-inch figures.
They've done a lot of those.
Yeah, I figured that line was going pretty well, and I thought they would actually do it with them. Yeah. But I haven't seen any new ones, honestly.
I know they were doing, I know as of last year there were a few new sets.
Because I know everyone's now is all about Marvel Legends now.
Right.
Ever since they rebooted the series. But before that, it was all about Marvel Universe.
Well, right, because there was that transitional period there where Toy Biz disappeared, and I don't think the Legends were selling too well when Hasbro took over.
Yeah.
They were trying to transition everybody into those smaller figures to jack the price up. And I think that from a business standpoint, the smaller figures were more profitable, and they were really pushing them for a while. And I think when those started to run their course, they kind of brought it back to the Marvel Legends just to keep it mixed up again.
Yeah, I know.
And I think they went back, too, and realized how this collector's market is so insane that we really do want every character, no matter how...
obscure they are?
Exactly, no matter how obscure the character is. And they started making some of these ones that they said, you know what, there's a couple of hundred figures here that we haven't even touched on, and we can sell those to these people now.
Oh, yeah, I think the obscure characters are the best, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because you're always gonna find a Spider-Man figure. But
right.
When are you to really find a Boomer, the bad guy from Spider-Man, Boomerang figure?
Yeah.
Like, he's like a D-list villain.
I want them to do a Rocket Racer. You know who Rocket Racer is?
Oh, yes, I remember Rocket Racer.
He's that black dude that was in the Spider-Man comics in the 70s. He was in maybe 2 or 3 issues.
Exactly. I like those characters, the really obscured ones,
Yeah.
They're the best. But
well, I think if they do it smart, when you do something like that, keep it a low run. Don't do 5 million of them, and that's what's going to drive the market. As soon as people see that, oh man, they made a Rocket Racer, that thing's worth $200, and I didn't get it, people are going to become obsessed. That's going to drive them now to make sure they get all of whatever series it is, the Marvel Legends or the 4-inch series. It's that collector's mentality, man. They drag us into it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I think I escaped the mentality. Because before I had a problem like that. Yeah. I was just buying.
You got help, huh? You went to those Tuesday night meetings. Yeah. You sat down. You said, "My name's Esteban. I collect toys."
Yeah, because I had a mentality too. Like I wanted the whole set.
Yeah.
But then they started taking a hit to my wallet.
Yep.
And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like my money more, So now I'm just really focused on buying the ones that I really want.
Right.
And that's the only ones I buy, and I have to second guess myself when I'm on Amazon. I have my cart filled. Do I really want these people?
Right.
Do I really care for them that much that I'm gonna have them as an action figure?
Right.
And I really start questioning myself. And, I just put everything back,
So what if you see down the road, looking forward, what would you say, we know what got us into these markets, what do you say would be the last thing you would abandon? So now, 10, 15 years down the road, you're cutting back on these, you're cutting back on that. What's the last thing you would abandon?
I think for me, it would be the comics.
The comic books, yeah.
Because, they're more easier to store. You put them in, those long shipping boxes. And it just, for me, is able to escape. I get to sit down and read for a couple hours and just escape from everything.
It's even easier to store if you're going digital, right? Which we've talked about. Neither of us are big fans of the digital, but a lot of guys are doing that now.
It's tough. I don't know. I'm really old school. I like having the paper in my hand.
Yeah.
This digital, I don't know. I just don't enjoy. I tried reading digital. I just couldn't do it. It just bothers me for some reason.
Yeah, I'm so old school. I can't even get past this mentality of if I buy a movie, I want a disc in my hand. I don't want just an electronic copy of it.
Yes, and that's another thing, too. I don't understand. But then again, CDs warp and they get messed up, and then you keep a copy on your hard drive. It's there forever.
Well, true, but then you got to back up your hard drive, so...
Yeah.
There's good and plus and minuses to both setups. For me, I think the last thing that would go, the comic books I've lost interest in, and I have such a big collection.
Well, which I understand, because like I said, the comic industry is just a pain right now. There's so many variants coming out, and they're just trying to exploit people getting money. And then there's this rare variant issue that's $100 or whatever. You know,
I try. I don't move away from it completely. I'll every once in a while I'll pick something up and give it a shot, but I love the simplicity of the old books. I love the artwork of the old books, the storylines of the old books. So the comic books are gone for me. The movies and stuff is kind of, I mean, I like them for what they are, but it's never exactly what I want. So I'd have to say the last thing that would go for me would probably be either the action figures or the animation. I mean, I still enjoy the animation. That to me is probably the truest form of the comic book stuff that I grew up on. The movies are too deviated too far from the source material. The animation tends to be a little bit more true.
But for me though, it's funny because I used to be such a big gamer.
Yeah.
And I already moved away from that already.
Why? I mean, is it because,
like you said,
you just lost your interest?
No, is this, like you said, it's the time in the day.
Yeah.
I work, obviously, I graduated from college. I work a 40-hour week job. I get home, and the last thing I want to do is just plop down and not think for the rest of the day,
What I found with video games...
video games are too, like you said, it's too complicated now, too time-consuming now.
Yeah, I mean... Even if I had the time to sit and play a video game for an hour or whatever a day, it requires too much almost training. It's like if you expect me to sit here and actually learn how to do this, you're going to have to pay me, man. This is work.
Exactly.
It's too much effort. And don't get me wrong. I mean, the games I've seen are amazing. The graphics are amazing. The ability is amazing. The way it's more like a movie, it's telling a story and stuff is very cool. But it's too time consuming, and more so it's just too complicated. I can't put that kind of effort into video games. I gave up on video games a long time ago. Not that I'm not impressed with what's out there. I just I can't do that.
Yeah, same thing with me. I used to be a big gamer. I used to play every night for 4 or 5 hours. Mm-hmm. Call of Duty, like all those crazy games, Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Yeah.
I used to play, and plus, just to be decent in those games, you got to put like tons of hours into it.
Right, to get your skills up.
Yeah, but then, like I said, I guess I'm an adult now. I really don't have that time anymore.
But again, it is interesting when you look back at, we were pulled in by comics. Nowadays, there's so many ways for people to get into this industry, whether they're playing video games, whether they're just going to the movies, whether they turn on, I want to say Saturday morning TV, although I know that doesn't apply, but when they turn on and they see some animation, it's in your face. I mean, it's everywhere. That's what another point I forgot to make is now it's acceptable now. Now it's cool. Right.
I wish I can be like a fly in the wall in the high schools now.
Yeah. And
see the kids now and like, if you don't like Spider-Man, you're not cool, basically. Like that mentality now.
Yeah.
Like with it's the cool kids are the geeks now. Like the cool kids pretending to be geeks now. And
you know what that's probably got to do with too is it's probably a lot with the movies because of the execution. If you think back, you look at some of the stuff like when I was a kid, we had some Saturday morning stuff. We had the live action Shazam, Captain Marvel show.
And like you said, a lot of it has to do with the movies.
Right. So, but the execution of like that type of stuff was kind of hokey, right? Even the Batman TV series, as cool as that show is, and it's very cool right now, it always had that kind of hokey element to it. Whereas these movies, the gripe that I have with them being gritty, but that is what makes them effective because it's believable and it's it's not
even that. It's just cool now because Robert Downey Jr. He's a cool guy, and he's Iron Man,
Right, but what I'm saying is, if you did that in
like girls love him, you know what I'm saying?
But if you did
that sex appeal now to comics,
Right, but it's not just him. If you did that movie in using the technology that they had to do the Saturday morning Captain Marvel TV series from 1978 or whatever it was, it would be hokey because it would look so stupid, and it doesn't matter how cool he's acting. It's the execution. It's that believability. It's you watch it and you believe that this is a guy in an iron suit who's kicking ass, and you want to be him. So I think it's the technology and the ability to make this stuff convey in a realistic way that's getting so many people on board.
Oh yeah, of course.
I think that's what makes a big difference, because obviously the product hasn't changed that much, right? Iron Man is still a guy in an iron suit for the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah, but like you said, it's just the execution now.
It's how it's delivered. Yeah, I mean, it's done realistically, and I think this is where the games succeed too, because the games have come so far from those, whatever it was, 16-bit or 32-bit games that I was playing.
Yeah, they're basically movies now in themselves.
Right.
It's just, oh man, I'm just happy I'm able to, like, I guess, live in this day and age.
Yeah.
To see this, all of it. To see all of it. Because I honestly, when I was younger, I don't even thought all this was possible.
Imagine how this must feel to somebody like Stan Lee, right, or these creators when they see all this stuff brought to life.
Oh, their mind must be blown.
Yeah.
Because they started this with just little drawings on a piece of paper.
Who would ever have thought that, we're sitting here and we're going to write stories and we're going to draw pictures, and 50 years from now this is going to explode into every medium, things that we don't even know are going to exist, and it's all going to be our product. I mean, it's really must be mind-blowing for them.
Yeah, I can imagine, like, drawing something on a piece of paper and then, like, months later see it in a movie with a full operational Iron Man suit,
Yeah, 3D CGI graphics.
And it looks believable too.
Yeah,
which is this is the scary part,
I was talking to Bob Layton at a show over the summer, and we were talking about Iron Man specifically, and he was saying how just how they can do anything with it, and basically the same conversation we're having here, how it's that technology, that it wasn't there before. You never could have made, forget about an Iron Man TV show, you couldn't have made an Iron Man movie 25 years ago,
of course,
because it would have been hokey and nobody would have bought tickets to it. And now DC is killing the TV networks because they're doing such good shows, because they can actually bring this believability, not quite as good, but it's good enough for TV.
Yes, and that reminds me, they're making the Suicide Squad. I also heard about that too.
Is that going to be a spin-off from Arrow?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
So I think they're trying to make either it was a movie or a show. I think it was a show. I forget.
And yeah, we had mentioned there's talk now. They're very close to doing a Titans series, which would be the Teen Titans, but it's just going to be called Titans. And another one I think you had mentioned earlier to me was
Deadpool.
Deadpool movie, correct?
Yes, they finally announced it. I think it was 2016. They're aiming for.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm really excited for. Like, I don't know if you saw, like, the leak trailer.
Yeah.
Teaser.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about it? I know it was all CGI.
I thought it was interesting. It was very Deadpool-esque. I just think, for me, Deadpool wears on me too much. He's kind of like Lobo. He's good in small doses, but when you start to get too much of him, he's just a... I'll refrain from the word I was going to use. But
that's the number one complaint I get from people, because I'm a huge Deadpool fan. That's, like, one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
But I do agree, he does get oversaturated, especially in the comic book world. He's almost on every cover of every comic book.
Yeah,
like, he's not even in that series, or not even making a cameo.
Right, and
he's on the cover.
I'm not even just talking about overexposure like they do with Wolverine. I'm talking about personality. I think that this is like an abrasive person who can be entertaining. Imagine a person like this in your life. They're shocking. They say crazy things. You might laugh at them, but if you got to sit through them for too long, I think they just start to wear on you. You'd almost be rooting for him to get killed at some point because he'd be so annoying.
Yeah, I do agree, I guess. So hopefully they don't make... I guess that's one mistake they don't make in the movie. He's not too annoying in the movie.
Well, I think he's got to be annoying. That's the trick. I think it's going to be the balance that they have between him and other characters to keep the people watching the movie so they're not getting frustrated by Deadpool, so that there's some kind of human element and other characters for that personality to play off of.
Yeah, I think that's what Deadpool is really good. He's playing off other people.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing I did notice when people write things about Deadpool or his comic book stuff. Mm-hmm. He's always surrounded by a group of people, or he's always in a group.
Yeah, I mean, when you take a character like The Mask, right, with Jim Carrey, I mean, he was an annoying prick too. He was causing all kinds of trouble, but that's what you loved about him. Like Woody Woodpecker, you know what I mean? Yeah. He's a troublemaker. You want to see him causing problems, but I think even with Deadpool, it goes a little bit further because he's just such an ass sometimes. You want to see him get what he's got coming to him, and I don't think you ever see that with The Mask or Woody Woodpecker. You never see, a car or something fall on top of Woody Woodpecker. But I think with Deadpool, you want to see him kind of get hurt because he almost deserves it.
Yeah, well, that's another thing with Deadpool. He always gets hurt. A lot in the comic books, he gets stomped on by a T-Rex or something.
Right, but that stuff's like irrelevant to him, right? He's almost like Kick-Ass. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, he has the same heel factor as Wolverine, so...
Yeah.
He could be the butt of the joke and he doesn't die,
So we'll see. I mean, it's a weird role because it does work as CGI because you don't even really need an actor in the role.
Yeah, I was surprised that the CGI was really, really good.
Yeah. I
was actually really surprised when I saw the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they said they're not doing CGI for the movie, though.
Okay.
So it's going to be Ryan Reynolds in the costume. Because that was supposed to be like a test shot or whatever they said.
Right.
They were just testing it out, so...
We'll see. When you look at the lists of what Marvel and DC have planned over the next 10, 15 years, it's crazy.
Yeah, I know. There's just really... I guess they're really, really, really scraping the barrel to make much money as possible.
Yeah. Well, why would you stop if, it's as good as printing your own money?
No, basically. But it's good, though, because I feel like, there's a lot of second-tier, third-tier characters that people should get to know,
I think even more so with DC. I think DC has a lot of untapped characters right now.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. A lot of characters. But, with Marvel, for example, I would love to see Power Man or Luke Cage get his own movie.
Well,
or Black Panther.
You're going to see those guys in the
Netflix, yes.
In the Netflix series. So we'll see how well that goes. I mean, I think that's going to start in May. I was hoping that was going to be sooner, but it actually makes sense because there's such a barrage of TV shows coming on the next few weeks that are comic book related. It makes sense for them to do that in May.
Well, for me, I think Netflix is different because, one, it's Netflix, and two, when they release something that's only for Netflix, they release it at once.
Oh, you mean you think the all whatever it is, all 10 episodes will be out at once?
Yes, because they've been doing that with all their Netflix series.
Oh, all right. I didn't realize that.
So for me, it'd be a little different because you can just binge watch, I guess, the Luke Cage Power Man season in one day if you wanted to when it came out.
Yeah.
Because I've done that with Orange is the New Black.
Yeah.
New season came out. I just binge watched that whole entire week. I watched the whole entire season in 1 week.
See, but this comes back to the same thing we've been discussing, that there's only so many hours in a day. And with all these other series coming out, Gotham's coming out, and Arrow's coming back, and Flash is coming out, and Constantine's coming out.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't watch that much TV. I just can't.
Well, for me, like I said, you just got to be smart and become invested in what you really want to watch.
Yeah.
Because time is money, so you got to, time is precious, so you got to allocate your time just as your money when you're buying comics and action figures.
Unfortunately, I'm obligated to at least try to watch all of them just to see what they're about. But yeah, so that's why I'm glad that the Netflix stuff isn't going to be starting until May. And, I'm not going to forget Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I want to say I finally got through the first season. And,
no, I gave up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., to be honest.
It does pick up towards the middle, but it never quite falls into place completely. They were trying to do something with double spies.
Because of the Captain America movie. That's why.
Right. They tied it into that whole thing. And it's strange to watch the Captain America movie after seeing that because...
Yeah, that's what I heard. People were saying it picked up after the movie came out.
Yeah, but it just... it's a few levels down. You know what I mean? It's TV, so the production isn't quite there. And the last episode had Samuel L. Jackson as a featured character.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and that other female agent from S.H.I.E.L.D. is in it.
Oh, so Robin.
I'm not sure what her name is. The girl with the dark hair. She's kind of like
Robin
Natasha.
Robin from How I Met Your Mother. That's why.
Oh yeah, right.
That's why I call her that.
Right. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird because I see what they were trying to do, but they didn't quite achieve it. But by the same token, Arrow wasn't very good the first season. It was okay, and then they went back and retooled the show, and I think it was much better the second season.
I think that happens with a lot of shows after the first season.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed when I rewatch shows from the beginning,
yeah,
it's really different compared to other seasons.
Yeah, I think especially in this day and age, again because of all the technology, the producers were able to get a lot of feedback from the fans to see what's working and what's not working, and they were able to kind of make that adjustment. With Arrow, if you ever get around to watching it, by the end of the first season, you can see that there was a shift. There was a deliberate shift. I think before they got those last few episodes done, they had enough feedback to say this is what we're going to do for the second season, and they made a few minor tweaks to the story that kind of set it in motion for that second season. Yeah, because
I rewatched The Office, and I saw the earlier episodes were different from the later episodes.
Yeah.
Same with How I Met Your Mother. I started rewatching that. Even Friends, I saw the older episodes.
Yeah.
A lot different than the newer episodes.
Well, I think it's the creative process. I think once you start doing something and you not just find your stride, but you start to realize, hey, this is the correct recipe here. This is the way to do it. Whereas, especially in that first season, you have a vision, but things are still falling into place. I think once you get into 2 and 3 seasons, you kind of got that process down to a science. And unfortunately, I think once the show reaches that 3rd, 4th season, you don't see things change after that, because then
because they found the formula. Okay, this is what works. This is what people likes.
For better or for worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes it almost seems like it would be better if it would evolve at some point into something else.
But people don't like change, I feel. People get upset about change, so I feel.
And unfortunately, I mean, the reality of it is that television series is going to have a finite existence. At some point, the cast isn't going to want to do the show. It's not going to be profitable, and it's going to go off the air. So, but if something would keep evolving, who knows? Maybe it could go on.
I don't know. It's going to be tough, especially with with the Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
I was funny. I was dying to mention this. They have a whole entire TV show about geeks.
Right.
And it's cool to be a geek because obviously the show is doing really, really well.
Right.
And a lot of people watch it.
Yeah, I mean, we probably should have brought that up earlier. I mean, that does show how the change in society.
It's cool now. Like, a lot of people find those characters cool and with their glasses now, and it's just crazy how we're living in society now.
Hey, look, if I was involved in a confrontation and I had my choice between being the geek or being the muscle-bound dude, I would still choose to be the muscle-bound dude. But there's definitely a movement towards it's cool to be a geek.
Yeah.
Or a GERD. A GERD, as I'm going to call them.
A GERD. No, you can be both. There's nothing wrong with being a muscle-bound and geek either, too,
Yeah.
Because, for me, for example, I'm a pretty big guy, I'm 6 foot, at least 260. Playing sports all my life, but I'll wreck you in some Super Mario Kart, though.
You got those strong thumbs.
Exactly. And I think that's what the point I was trying to make today was, it's okay to be a geek, whoever you are.
We're going to start a meeting, a weekly meeting on Wednesday nights for anybody who's having a problem with collecting. If you just can't control yourself, we're going to sit down and yes, it is okay to be a geek.
It's okay, as long as it doesn't, take over your life and then, or be a hoarder. 'Cause I know a lot of those happens a lot.
Please, Esteban, we're not working magic here. I mean, we can't. That is the curse. That is the collector's mind.
Yeah, it's it gets back. I'm starting to see it as a collector myself. I'm starting to be where the fuck am I gonna pull all this stuff?
I take solace when I'm in some of the forums on Facebook and stuff, and I see pictures that people post of their houses, and I'm like, wow, I am not alone.
Yeah. That's the same thing I tell myself. I don't have it that bad. I have a corner that has unboxed toys that haven't opened up yet. Yeah. Then someone else has like 100, like 200 boxes and they're unopened yet.
There's almost always somebody who's got it worse than you. You know, there's the crazy cat lady down the street.
Yep, that is true.
All right, I think we're going to wrap it up for ActionFigureKing.com. I'm John Croce. Please check out our database of action figures, toys, and collectibles. You can sort them any which way you like. And this is my co-host.
It's Esteban from Esteban TV. I take a lot of photography of my toys and my silly nonsense, so you guys can always look me up on Instagram for those cool stuff.
And we will be back soon with another episode of the podcast Popcast. Check us out then. Take care.
Adios.